Hey, welcome everybody. I'm here with my friend Ray, and we're going to talk about helping seniors. We're going to be talking about marketing. We're going to be talking about the state of local real estate up in the DC area. So, hey, welcome Ray to the show today.
Thank you, Max. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, Ray, why don't people want to get to know you a little bit better and what you do. So maybe you could just, in a couple of minutes or so, break down what you do and how you help people in real estate.
Okay. So I started in real estate. Actually, my grandfather used to flip houses before they called it flipping houses. So he would buy a house, fix it up, and then sell it when my grandmother needed they needed a new car or new furniture, whatever. And so he pretty much had a niche market at the time. And then they came out with these shows like 15 years ago, and then everybody wanted to do flipping. But I did actually get my real estate license in 2009. So I help people. That is just one of the things that I do. I'm not one of those people that say I only do a real estate, realtor.
So you help people with you've been a realtor since '09. What made you want to get your real estate license?
I think because when we were flipping houses, people were always asking me, "Oh, are you a realtor? Can you help me out?" And then also, so I could actually find deals like coming soon before they came onto the market. So when we were at the time we were flipping houses, so it was just till we could cut some of the costs, maybe save 3 to 6% on our flips. So that's why I did it. And then family and friends just started asking me, "Hey, can you list my house, or can you help me find a house, or my son's looking for a house now. Can you help me out?"
So if you're tuning into this show, you're going to want to keep listening because Ray is a smart guy, and he just said two things in there that a lot of real estate investors don't know. So I want to come back to that. So tell me what you mean by coming soon. What is that? What do you mean by you got your real estate license to find deals coming soon? What does that mean?
Well, sometimes you might find a great deal. Somebody just wants to get rid of a house or a real before it comes up on the market. And before, this was like really before Redfin and Trilio and all those sites were hot. So, at the time you could see listings that were about to come up before everybody else could. And now I think they do show up on Redfin and a couple of other sites.
Sure, sure. So, because a lot of people, and I recently got my license, and a lot of people, when I started being involved in real estate, were saying, "Don't get your license, don't get your license." And I feel like I got bad advice, and I should have gotten my license sooner because I went to so many people's houses and I could have helped them, even if I didn't do the listing, but I just connected them to somebody else and got a referral or something like that, somebody that I know, like, and trust. What's your experience been? I mean, do you agree that it's having a license is helpful if you're a real estate investor, and if so, how?
Yeah, I think so, because then people like, "Oh, he's not just an investor. This guy lists house for other people," and then you can show them, "Look on my page. I've listed 5 houses this year or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the guy that does like 100 houses a year. I only do like maybe up to 10, but that's just I'm mostly doing for friends or family or repeats. But when you do talk to somebody as an investor, then they say, "Oh, he's not just an investor. He helps people, so he will look out on my behalf if I want to list the house for." With him.
Sure. Well, tell everybody what market you're in, housing market you're in, and what you're seeing right now in your local housing market.
So right now, I mean, I have gotten my senior real estate specialist, so I am targeting working with seniors, senior citizens. And right now, the DC area, well, DC suburbs, I'm in Virginia, about 20 miles outside of DC. The houses it's really hot. The houses are selling if it's well priced in about 7 days. So, that's from listing to actually being under contract. Now, yeah, I think all these people had money. They had been pre-approved for loans. Then this pandemic hit, and that pre-approval was burning a hole in their pocket. And then also inventory was kind of low. So once people started buying, a lot of people are buying right now.
Now, how bad was your area affected in the last recession? Because I mean, a lot of people are saying maybe we're approaching one. We don't have to play the crystal ball game, but I mean, something is happening. There is a disruption. I don't know how big it'll be, but the point is that but it was every disruption is kind of hits different areas, different amounts. how badly, like what was kind of the impact, and what year did it start in the last recession for your part of the world?
Yeah, the last one was pretty bad because the houses just became hyper inflated, and people were thinking, oh, this is gonna be my last chance to be able to buy a house, and they saw how easy it was to get the financing. So most people were upside down like 40%. So if they still own that house today that they would have bought in '06 or between '06 and '09, they'd still be underwater. So,
Wow.
yeah. So some of the houses that in a neighborhood nearby, people bought them for like 1.1 million, and now they're back to 900,000. So those people are still underwater. But that was the high end. But on the market as a whole, that's about where they're at. They're just getting to be where they were hoping, like in the next few years, that they'd break even.
Got it. Okay. Wow. I didn't realize that. Yeah. So in Dallas, where I am, Fort Worth, I mean, we didn't go up as much in the last market, not even close. And so we didn't go down as much. It's kind of a lesson there. And so now, we've exceeded, it's all time high. So it's past, the '07, '08. It was a little bit later here. I think it was earlier for y'all. So what do you think's coming in the future? What kind of impact do you think, with, landlords not getting paid and people just struggling, all around? What kind of impact do you think it's going to be have in the next, 6 to 12 months in your area? What are you hearing?
I've read different things, but I've heard, some people, once they're like 3 months behind, once they're told, okay, you have to pay now, they're going to have to come up with 3 months back mortgage right off the bat before catching up. So a lot of people that either have stopped paying because they just can't, or thinking, oh, other people aren't paying, so I'm not. I would recommend that they just start paying if it's possible, because I believe a lot of foreclosures are up ahead.
Yeah, 100%. And you talked about reaching out and helping seniors. So tell us how specifically, like what made you want to do that? And like, how do you specifically help seniors?
So I started singing at a senior facility. So I'd worked at IT for 22 years. And when I stopped working there, I started, in my free time that I started singing on Tuesdays at an assisted living facility. And after I would get done singing, I would go around the room and talk to everybody, at least for a few seconds. I would try to shake everyone's hand or touch them on the shoulder. Some people, or just say hi. Some people don't like to be touched at all, and you get to know the people. But as I talked to the people that did respond, they would say, I'd say, hey, this place is lovely. It's a really nice place. And some of them would say, well, this wasn't the place I would have picked. The salesperson was really pushy, or my daughter liked the salesperson, but I liked the one down the street. And I started, hearing them say that, and it kind of stuck with me. Like, I wish I could have helped them beforehand, but I didn't, I didn't know the situation that they were in. And my parents are like in their 70s now, so they're starting to get up there. But I hadn't been in the spot where I had to place my parents in assisted living. I was, that's when I was learning that these people do go through a lot. And a lot of times they would reach out to these big companies who would put them on a huge mailing list. They would say, oh, I want the price. They'd go online and they would go to a website and they would say, hey, I'll tell you the prices of all this is living in your area. Just give me your contact info. The minute they put it in, within 5 minutes, these poor seniors said their phones were blowing up, and these people just wouldn't stop calling. And a lot of times, that's why family would just put them into one, because they were just tired of all the calls. So it was just a rushed thing, because these big companies would just sell their contact info to all the assisted living homes in the area, and then get a kickback, once the person was placed. So then I started realizing that, I want to help these people go into homes. And so actually, and that's when I met you, and we met. You said you were just finishing up a book. Actually, you were talking about the book at a conference, and I said that I had really wanted to write a book, and we kind of connected there. Yeah. And then so I did co-author the book with you, and it's funny because we're kind of doing different things with it. I'm helping people, sparking conversations. When I start talking to them, a lot of people, And then they say, oh, my grandmother lives with me, or my husband's grandmother, or my husband's parents need to go into a home. And when I started the conversation, I said, you know what? Actually, I've written a book. Let me send you a copy, and I'll get their address. But it's kind of funny because a lot of things that they bring up, it's almost, you know, you need to be a little bit marriage counselor, a little bit of everything, because these people start telling me, you know, his grandma's been here so long, you know, she's really got to get out, you know, or something like that. And you're kind of in the middle. But a lot of times those conversations haven't started. Like, what are you going to do? Like every time it gets brought up, one of them will end the, will just won't want to discuss it. But I think it's easier with a third person there, you know, so I'll go in, just kind of talk to them and tell them their options. And so I've started a placement service. So it's no cost to the people. I just get I'll get a referral fee from the companies once they are placed in the big homes or any homes.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's a huge service, and it's super important to be that counselor, and it's hard to find people who know everything there is about. We're always learning, but it's hard to know all the ways to sell your house if it's an investor property, and all the ways to sell your house if it's retail property, and all the different options there are in senior housing. It's a lot to navigate. So I think that's really cool that you're helping these people navigate it. What made you, think about doing that?
I think it was just the need. So when I talk to the people, a lot of times they even just the desperation or the hope, like this wasn't the place I would have ended up. So a lot of it was, well, if I could have connected them to the right person, almost like a matchmaker for assisted living. So, if maybe this person is more suited for a small home, or they like all the activities and they want to be in that bigger home.
Right.
Or maybe just not the home that they ended up in, like maybe one down the street. And then there's also the state reviews that you can read. So it's like a third party review that you can read about the different homes.
So who's kind of the ideal person that would be a fit to work with you? Like, what's their situation right now, and when when should people start like actually planning this out? So like if you're helping families figure out what's going on and what their options are, like when should people start that process?
But I'd say start at around 65 or so. And I know that sounds kind of young, but so I've met people that say, oh, my mother-in-law or my dad just doesn't want to have the conversations. We haven't talked to like anybody about a will. We haven't talked about, setting up a trust or anything. So I think that the sooner the better. A lot of times people have a mom, and they'll say, oh, she lives by, and I'm driving 30 minutes every morning to go check on her, and then sometimes I'll come home and then have to go back again in the evening, because these conversations weren't really started and mom's kind of afraid of it. So now it's kind of harder. Now a lot of companies are doing virtual tours, but before people could actually just go in and start touring them, almost like if you were buying a new car and saying, hey, let's see what's out there.
But what you do is different because you save families a lot of time. So instead of them having to go out and do all the research, you've done a lot of that. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit? How you can help the families, just find what they're looking for a lot faster?
Yeah, so a lot of times there's discussions, and then most people don't really want to talk about money, but you've kind of got to. So once we start talking about money, then we kind of realize that because some of the homes around us, they're like $12,000 a month. And then there might be other areas where it's like $3,500 a month.
A big difference.
So yeah, it just depends. And a lot of times people don't realize if they're the spouse of a vet, and that they might get some benefits. So I've got a guy that that I refer them to. Like sometimes a spouse will pass away. A lot of times the husband passed away before, and so the wife doesn't know these benefits that she has. So I'll refer him to this person that I've met, and he will help. Like to tell them that some money that's available to them. And a lot of times people don't realize that, they think, oh, my husband had a retirement fund, and then you go look at it, and they actually had money in the stock market, and they might have bought a stock a long time ago. So, I'm like, oh, your husband bought, whatever a long time ago, and you've got, 170K there, which is relief for them because a lot of time they just think it's, oh, I'll start just pulling so much money every month. So
Right.
it's just helping them look at the, what they have available to them. There is a guy that I work with who does reverse mortgages, and so he says a lot of people are afraid to call because they're not working, and he says it's not based on how much people make, it's on how much equity's in the home. And so just educating people on this
Mm-hmm.
is what I do.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, that's huge because there's there's you normally fear. Normally, people don't do anything because they're afraid, and normally fear is based on the unknown. So what I'm recommending is that if you're watching this and you're in the DC area and you're a senior, or know or love a senior, and there's just any kind of unknown and there's any kind of fear, reach out to Ray, because people like Ray or he or God like put you on the planet for a reason, and it's to guide these people and help them and connect them to the different resources, because you may have some benefits that you don't even know about. I've run into some people, and I work with seniors too. Here I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. I've run into some people who didn't know that their parents had long-term care insurance policies. And when they found out about them, they didn't really understand what they were or how much they paid. Do you have people that you meet with that use those to pay for their expenses? And do you think those are a good thing to look into?
Exactly. That's like one of the best things that anybody could have is, and they do seem expensive when you start paying into it, especially when you're just retiring.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's how a lot of the people in the $12,000 a month homes are in there. Because when I went out, I talked to the administrator, the guy in charge of marketing, and we kind of sat down and had a discussion, and I said, you have a lot of, I can tell from what people are wearing, you have a lot of vets in here, because a lot of, they have the hats or the T-shirts, and really proud of serving their country, and they should be.
Of course.
But a lot of that, he was saying that the veteran benefits, and a lot of these people have the long-term health insurance. And, a lot of insurance companies are not going to tell you about it. Most people are, once you retire, they just want to, they're just pretty much told about, okay, here's your health insurance. You want to keep paying that. If nothing else, that's the most important thing. And keeping your health insurance is very important, but they don't really tell you about the benefits of the long-term healthcare insurance, and that's going to help you to go into a home. A lot of them, $7K a month plus is what they're paid. I've talked to some people that theirs will pay $9,000 a month, and you're right, they didn't even know that. They knew that they had the long-term health insurance, but they didn't know what it would pay and the benefit of it. And they're like, oh my, I'm so glad I got this. And they're like, yeah, you should be, because most people don't know this. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, we just got that. My mom got one. She's in her mid 60s, and so she got it around 60. I think somebody had told us that when you're the earlier the better, but when you're in your 50s, 60s, if you have like a lot of assets, a huge amount, maybe you can just pay for any kind of care out of pocket if you're a gazillionaire. If you're really, really impoverished, maybe the premiums are too much. But for the people who are in the middle, I see it as like a huge, huge win. And you need to get it before you get too old. You need to get it before you get too sick. You can't just like show up in your 70s and you're starting to have some of those daily life activities that are starting to you're struggling with them. It's going to be really hard to qualify. So yeah, if you're watching this, or if you're taking care of a senior, looking into it. Do they have a long-term care policy? Because if so, that tremendously opens up the options that Ray can introduce y'all to. And now all of a sudden, instead of having to cash pay the $3,500 place, you can be, fully covered on the better place, because your policy will cover it. So I think that is a huge education piece.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. If there was one thing that you did to prepare is to get the long-term health insurance, and also, setting up like wills and trusts. You don't want your children to be having to fight for your home or sit there and wait till it comes out of probate while the home's just deteriorating. And, because that can be passed on to you or to whoever's listening to this and their children or grandchildren.
Right. I'm not a CPA or attorney. I'm not sure if you are, So, everything that we're saying here is our opinion. We get one. But what is your opinion on, because I've bought a lot of houses from people whose parents were, in the hospital, and they basically were sort of handcuffed because they didn't have the durable power of attorney stuff. And so they couldn't really take over the affairs, but somebody needed to sign to pay bills and to do, different things with the house, but they didn't have that set up ahead of time, and the parents were not in the state where they could. Have you run into that or heard of that or have an opinion on people getting that stuff set up?
I've heard of stories of this, but I've never actually helped with somebody in that specific position. But that is an issue of setting up, giving them power of attorney, access to your bank account, the passwords to the bank account, and things like that.
Yeah, because otherwise, I think maybe a lot of people don't want to talk, like me and you talk about it because we're in this space, but I think a lot of people, don't want to talk about it because you're really talking about mortality. When we're talking about moving to a home, it may be your last stop, and everybody has one. I mean, there's nothing we can really do to change that, but it doesn't make it any easier. So, so what do you do in your business? Like when people reach out to you, and they're trying to figure out what to do on this journey. Can you kind of walk me through, what happens after that, or what should they expect when they're, reaching out to someone like you to help guide them through this situation?
Well, typically I'll just sit down and start having a discussion. And it's funny because even the children, they'll kind of be holding back. And so I just feel like the more questions that I ask, it's making them feel better, because like the more they respond, the more they're kind of getting off their chest. But I think the first thing is they really do want to know about the money, but they just don't want to talk about it. So like typically, I'll bring it, I'll just start like putting the prices out there just to kind of bring up the subject. And then they realize, okay, everybody's in a different situation, but then also no matter what situation you're in, thousands or millions of people have been in the same situation that you're in. So you're not abnormal. You just kind of need to get out there and discuss this with the professionals. And like I told you, I refer them to the other people, like we're saying, like a CPA, like this guy that does the reverse mortgages. He's the one, the specialty person, but it's actually starting the conversations and then getting them in touch who they need to speak with.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of times after that initial conversation, that they just feel better, because I think they feel like, okay, now I've got a plan, so yeah, Ray can't answer everything, but I have a way better situation, one that I thought I had, and then two, I kind of have a plan to go on. So I'll recommend them to people, and I'll call them back and say, hey, did you call Joe over at so and so? And sometimes like, oh, I've been putting it off or whatever, but if they need to place mom or dad right away, they're calling. So within a week, they'll have called these people.
Very cool. So what's the situation like where you are as far as, the availability of good homes to live in? Is there a lot of vacancies? Is it, because, we talked earlier about the housing market and how it, single family homes are flying off the shelf. But what's the situation like right now with senior housing? Is it very available? Is it very scarce? What are you seeing?
Right now, it's really available. I think that the news has kind of given assisted living homes like a black eye right now. It's kind of sad because you see the hospital as a care, a place where you go for care, and you also see an assisted living a place you go to for care. But the amount of people that have died in hospitals, it's sad, but it's way more than the people that have died in assisted living. And back in April, I don't know if you saw this on the news. They were talking about like mayors and local government were reallocating PPE to what they deemed the front line of the hospitals. Where do you think it was coming from? The assisted living homes. And then when people did start kind of getting to the corona, they were going after the assisted living homes, which I kind of feel bad about. But because of this, the stigma that they have right now, there's a lot of vacancies. And so I read senior housing news. You can sign up for it. You can get an email every day. And so these bigger places like Brookdale, they're saying that their numbers are down. And so they're obviously lowering prices right now. But they've also set up like germ control. So like somebody comes into one of these big facilities, and even the small ones, and they're quarantined for 14 days. So they go into an area, and of course they have to get checked for the virus before they come in. They're quarantined, and then they're checked before they're released over to where everybody else is. And a lot of them are keeping people, like some of the homes in our area, they're keeping people still in their rooms like pretty much all the time. They're knocking on the door, checking vitals, giving them their breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or snacks, whatever. So right now the availability is high in these homes, and you can also work deals. So I help them negotiate. So if somebody can qualify for 6,500, but I know that a home that they really want to go to might be closer to 7.5. I'll call the marketing and say, hey, I got this guy. He's ready to move in. But the most he can do is 6,500 a month. I know that your single bed, goes for 7,500 a month. They don't have that many. What you brought up earlier, assistants of daily living, what they call, in the industry they call it ADLs. I'll say this guy has like 1 or 2 ADLs, and you'll see that. And so I will help them try to get that. So it's helping them move up, and it might just be a couple $100 a month, but that's thousands of dollars a year that these people will save.
If somebody wants to reach out to you, whether it's a referral partner or somebody just has some questions, or somebody who's trying to figure out what to do with their parents and their housing situation, what's the best way that they can connect with you?
Yeah, so they can send me an email to Ray at BAA. Hold on. LH.
You don't email yourself very often. Yeah, say it one more time.
I don't. It's on my card. But so we had set up a site, Blessed Assurance Assisted Living Homes.com. So it's BAALH.
Oh, okay.
So it's a Ray at Blessed Assurance Assisted Living Homes, our acronym.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good. That shortens it. That makes it nice. We'll put it down at the notes too. And great. Well, Ray, it's been a pleasure. I think you shined a lot of light on what people need to do to get ready, and we've got your contact info so they can check you out, reach out, get a copy of your book, and until next time, we'd love to have you back on again to let us know what's going on with the senior housing market and how families can really prepare. So, thanks for coming on today.
All right, thank you, Max.